When teaching a dog bow, I typically start them on a high place so they can see the body positioning of putting their front legs low while keeping their rear end high. Once they have successfully figured out how to keep their back legs up on the place and their back end high, I'll remove placeboard so that it's just a low incline from the floor. Using treats, I lure my dog off the placeboard just enough that their front paws hit the floor again. Applying pressure to the shoulder blades helps them to dip down so that they end with their arms completely flat against the ground. Once they're successfully dipping down, I'll typically just apply pressure backwards with the treat into their snout to help them fold in. Another method is to keep her all four paws on the floor and using one arm to support her back end and using the other arm to lure her forward, showing her the body positioning of putting her front paws down while keeping her back end up. And finally, we completely transition to being able to use a body cue to show her to bow. And always make sure to reward for their hard work.
For today's trick, we're going to have Speedy teaching you how to spin. Now you're going to want to start with a high reward. Speedy loves treats, so that's what I started with, but you could also use a toy or even your hand if you practiced hand targeting. And we do this to coach, as you can see here, I coach Speedy to do a full rotation. And I reward at the end of the rotation, just like that. You can also see that I started teaching Speedy how to spin on a smaller place so that she has a smaller set of boundaries to focus on in comparison to teaching it on a wide open floor. Speedy starts to show me that she's making tons of progress, and doing so by going for the treat with less hesitation and also completing the rotation at a much quicker pace. Because of this, I remove the placeboard and make it a little bit difficult for her by having her perform the exact same task on the wide open floor. Once your dog is completing full rotation successfully, make sure to place a verbal command to it. For Speedy, that means spin. In the same session, I also taught Speedy how to spin in the opposite direction and use shimmy as a verbal command for that, making it so that she learned 2 tricks in one. Also, make sure to let your pup's personality shine. This will allow for them to make their trick their own. Kind of like how Speedy's showing you right now.
Hello everybody, today we're going to be teaching our dog how to roll over. I'm using Rogue today, she's my now on watch, she's going to be my faithful sidekick. If you've seen my bang video, you're going to be able to see a lot of similarities with this. If you haven't seen the bang video, take a look at it because you'll see a lot of similarities. Just like in my last tutorial video, I'm going to be using food to lure the head over, and I'm going to let it go all the way over instead of stopping the action. Huge reward when you complete it. Now, it's going to take a few times for your dog to do that. It's going to be a little bit weird for them to roll their body completely over. But once you do it, then you can start losing your hand away. Put them into your down, roll over from a distance. Very good. And then as soon as you get that happening, start taking a couple steps backwards. Give your dog a little bit more space, so then you can do it from a distance. Just like that.
Today, Grayson's going to teach us how to bounce. When teaching bounce, I like to get a high value reward for the dog, so whether that's a treat or a toy, for Grayson it's his ball on a string, and I'm going to start him in a nice heel, lead him up to the wall, and I'm going to put my foot up, and then I'm going to ask him to spread him on the wall, and then I lure him over my foot across the wall with his reward. And then of course to show him the motivation and working for me, I let him play with it a little bit, and I'm progressively going to raise my foot higher so that he has to go over my foot across the wall. And I want to start leading him until he starts to use his back legs on the wall. Some dogs will get it a little faster than others, and that's okay. It's a hard skill for them to learn. It takes a lot of confidence and a lot of body awareness for them to kind of flip their torso around the wall across your leg, and then always rewarding them with the toy afterwards. And I'm just going to do a couple reps of that until the dog is confidently bouncing off the wall. One way to kind of help troubleshoot is to put a leash on them and then help guide them up and over your leg, really showing them the picture of what you're asking. Another good way to troubleshoot if a dog isn't confident going off a flat wall is to get an object that you can put at an angle up against the wall, and using the same principle of slowly raising your foot up, I'm gonna also decrease the angle of the board to the wall so that eventually he's able to just do it right off the flat object. And if you take your foot away too soon and your dog isn't sure of what to do without that boundary, that's alright, put your foot back up and slowly lower it to the floor until they're just bouncing off the wall without your physical boundary.
Happy holidays! Today we're going to teach how to teach your dog how to heel around your body. This trick is going to require a dog to have a very good concept of heel. So here I'm just simply keeping my feet still as I turn my shoulders and torso. So since Riot knows that heel is to stay in line with my hip and my shoulder, as I turn my body, she's going to continue staying in that heel position with my shoulder and my hip as my feet stay planted on the floor. And I'm going to need to twist my torso very quickly in order to catch up with her on the other side of me to complete the trick. Now here you can use a barrier. This is a hula hoop ring, so that both her and I have a physical barrier that we can use as a cue for where we're going with it. And that way too, I can keep her tight into my body. Here I grab a healing stick. This is something you can pick up from some dog supply websites and whatnot. It's very flexible, not intended to create discomfort in the dog, but rather guide them. So I can use it to steer the rear of her by just tapping her rear end with it to keep her in line. Additionally, you can use a leash. Here I'm going to place it under her haunch just to, again, ensure that I can steer the rear end of the dog, because that's usually the end that's going to get stuck, especially because this is in reverse. So instead of her walking forward around my body, she's heeling in reverse around my body. So she really has to understand the back end of her body. And the leash can help me guide as we teach and troubleshoot for the dog's confidence. If your dog knows a touch command, you can also use your hand with the touch command to keep them focused on where to go. And then lots of repetition, consistency, and motivating the dog with a food, with lots of praise, with a toy like Riot, is going to add speed with their comprehension. Have fun!
Today we are going to be learning how to wave with knocks. One way to build the foundation to get your dog to wave is asking for their paw and increasing the height of your hand with each repetition. After a few reps, you can try to have them just lift their paw like so. Once the foundation is set, you can start to add the visual cue of you waving your hand and working towards having them do a couple of wave motions with their paw.